Hey guys, Josh Carter here with One Objective. In today's video, we're going to go over my top 5 techniques for wintertime fishing, so stay tuned. Alright guys, as you can see, it is a nasty cold day outside. It is let's sit by the fire and watch fishing shows kind of day. So I figured I'd take a little bit of time, come here in the studio and just talk to you guys about what I like to throw when the weather isn't this bad. And kind of break down each bait somewhat on, which ones I like to throw color wise and all that. This is my top 5 techniques, but I broke down to several different colors and different baits that I like to throw with each one or within that technique. So let's kind of dig into this and I'll show you guys, like I say, what I love to throw this time of the year. So as soon as I put the boat in at the lake, the first rod that I am pulling out is going to be my jerkbait rod. Water temperatures are right now in the upper 40s, some places low 50s. But upper 40s, and after this week, you're going to be looking at mid 40s. So, but like I said, I'm going to be throwing the jerkbait. Now, I got several different brands I like to throw. Mega Bass, Lucky Craft. I started throwing it Shimano around a little bit more. I don't know what the name is on that one. It's got the shaky metal thing inside. That so far, I've caught a couple fish on that. Earlier this year in the spring, it was a really great bait. But I always keep coming back to the Berkeley Stunner. We did really well down in Fork with this. We've done good at Toledo Bend with it. And then back here on our home water, Swift Mountain Lake and Gaston and Bugs and all that. We've just done really well. It seems like everywhere we go, we catch them on it. I got 2 different colors that I mainly stick with in the wintertime. Bass are primarily feeding on shad. Now, when later on, we'll get into the whole crawfish deal, but when I'm first looking on the lake, I'm looking for bait fish. I'm looking for those fish that are just gorging on bait fish at the moment. So, and like I say, you can catch some monsters on this. You can catch a really big fish on it, but you can also catch numbers on it. Now there is days where it's like throwing a jig. You're looking for 5 big bites all day long. But I've had days where I've caught, daggone 20 fish off of it, but all of them are in that 2 to 3 pound range, which is nothing wrong with that. But you can catch a good limit with just a jerkbait running around. But this one here is the 112. I do like throwing the shallow and the deep. The deep diver doesn't really run as deep as this one. But the awesome thing about the deep diver is like if you're fishing, like a drop that's in 6-7 foot of water, you want that jerkbait to hit the bottom and grind the bottom. Sometimes you can get it in 3-4 foot of water. I mean, I've had fish up there when it's in the 40s, up there on a sunny day, chasing bait fish or chasing crawfish, or just kind of hanging out in the sun, and you can work this thing by digging in the bottom, just working it slow, and they'll eat it. So, but my main 2 colors is this is more like a table rock color. I can't remember what the names of these colors are with the stunner, but I'll have links in the description where you can kind of go look at these baits. This one's just more of that white clearish. You got clear on the side, white on the top with that orange belly on it. And it seems like everywhere we've gone, that orange belly is key. Like we've thrown other baits. As soon as you throw something on there, whether it's a crankbait, jerkbait, whatever, as soon as it's got that little bit of orange belly, it's just like it's money. This one here, like I say, is more like the table rock. It's just got that little bit of fluorescent green on the top with that purple hue on the back, and then with the orange belly with a little bit of white sides there. So, but I'm throwing these on 10-pound test. A medium action rod, 10-pound test. You can't, and it's all just fluorocarbon. So I'm trying to get that smaller diameter, and that fluorocarbon helps get it down deeper. I have gone down to 8-pound test, and a lot of times if I do that, I'll go with a little bit heavier action spinning rod and throw the 8-pound test on there just because of the drag, a little bit better drag system on there. So we are messing around with the new Shimano. If you've seen earlier videos, the Shimano, I think it's the BTR. I think it's whatever. Don't hold me to it, but it's their finesse bait casting reel, and it's got a drag system like a spinning reel, but it's also, you can go to that light line But you know, I've seen guys talking about throwing jerk baits on there, so we're going to be testing that out a little bit this winter and trying it, going down to that 8-pound test with these. So, and you can go down to smaller sizes. You know, with Lucky Craft, I got a few of them that is a lot smaller size, like the Stacy's and all that. So it just depends on what your fish are chasing. I mean, if you're seeing some really tiny bait fish on the bank or around the ends of the docks and all, especially when the sun's out and they're all trying to get up and get warm, you know, definitely try to match a hatch with that. But I've basically everywhere we went with these jerk baits here, we've caught them this size here. So that's my number one that I'm going to pull out this time of the year. My number two is I'm going to go to some crankin. So I'm going to go and try to find anywhere water between 10 foot and shallower. And like I said earlier, some of these bait fish and crawfish and all that, they'll be up there, out there sunning. The bass are going to be up there trying to feed up and gorge up on them on their pretty days where they can get warm. So I'll go through, so first I'll start throwing like a Rapala DT6. You can throw a Rapala DT8. And then sometimes I'll also go down to like a Rapala DT10. But 9 times out of 10, I'm going to start with the 6. And then if I see a lot more fish deeper down, because what you're wanting to do is you want this thing to constantly try to be in contact with the bottom. It's okay to come over them a little bit, but I don't like it to being too far over their head in a water column. So I'm always trying to find a crankbait that's constantly going to be digging that bottom up. So you can reel it, stop, reel it, stop, reel it, stop, and just kind of get that reaction bite off of them. But you can work it slower too, you know what I mean? So if you're constantly keeping it in the bottom, as soon as you let off of it for a second, it wants to float up for a second, you can hammer down. So it just gives them that pause. But I'll go, you know, this is like a shad color here, and then you got your demon here. This color here seems to do really well all over the country, late winter all the way up through early spring, right before they're starting to pull up on the beds. Just, it's hard to go wrong with red. In any bait that you really throw, whether it be a chatterbait, whether it be you know, like jigs and swim jigs and all that kind of stuff. It just seems like red is the deal late winter, early spring. So, and then I also kind of go more to that natural crawl color. This is a Spro rock collar. You can go with your wiggle wart. You can go with whatever. I mean, several baits that are you know, 6 Cents has one that they're all similar to that rock crawler. I mean, that wiggle wart style bait. And we've been all over the country catching them off these rock crawlers. They work everywhere. But if you got a really good rocky bottom, well, you know, pebble rock, chunk rock, whatever, these baits right here are really good at working. And like I say, I stick with the shad color and the crawfish color. And a lot of times I'll have, you know, 3 different crankbaits tied on. It just depends. But I'll always have at least 1 shad on. And if I don't have 3, I only have 2 crankbait rods ready, I'll switch between natural crawl and a red crawl. But a lot of times in midwinter, I'm going to start with this red first. And if I'm not getting any action, any follows or anything, then I'm going to switch over to this natural color and try that a little bit too. And there's banks that got a lot of good transition, where you're going from mud to rock. You know, that's what I'm looking for, is those transition zones. I mean, you can work all the way down there in all that rock. You know, if the bank is just nothing but chunk rock all the way down, you can work that and you can still catch them. But it's when you find that one transition where it's, you know, it transitions from pebble to big rock, or mud to big rock, or mud to pebble, and then it moves on to big chunk rock and back down to a little bit of pebble rock. Those transitions are what you're looking for. That's where your key bites are going to come from, is those little transition areas. With that right there, I'm back to 10-pound test, medium heavy action rod. And I have gone up to about a 12-pound test. This depends on the structure that I'm working and how nasty and gnarly the rocks are and all that stuff. But the thing about these, when you're digging in the bottom, you know, you're going to get a lot of abrasions. It's the main thing with this is constantly retying through the day, checking your line. I see that's a big mistake for a lot of people with breaking line and all that. They're not retying enough when it comes to working these crankbaits and stuff in the bottom. But like I said, if you're trying to get maximum depth 10-pound test. If depth, you know, not trying to get it down as deep as you can, and it's not an issue, I'd go on up to about 12-pound test. But I wouldn't go no more than that, really. All right, so number 3 on my list, and I have been all over the country, like I said earlier, catching bass with this technique almost at every single BSS event we've been to and Hobie event we've been to. It's not been a a key factor in every event, but it's helped me either get a fish or figure out where some fish are at, or kind of figure out what the bottom's like. You can have live scope, you can have side scan, all that stuff, but you know, when you really throw this out there, you can really drag it across the bottom and really tell what kind of bottom that you're working with. And it's just a good slow presentation, especially during the winter time, where you can get a really big bite. It's slow, it's methodical, and sometimes you're better off watching paint dry, but it catches big fish. And that is the Carolina rig, the old ball and chain. I got 2 different baits here that I like to throw on this. We'll get in that in just a second, but I'm going to do a video here soon on my Carolina rig breakdown, my rod, my line, what all I use for weights and hooks and all that stuff. But basically, line right now, I'm going with at least 15-pound test for my main line. That's fluorocarbon. I will switch between mono and fluorocarbon for my leader. If I'm just throwing straight fluorocarbon, a lot of times it's still going to be 15-pound test. So I can, especially out in a kayak, I don't keep a lot of spools of line with me. If I know I'm going to be on a good Carolina rig bite through the day, I'll carry a good spool of line with me and I'll have several leaders tied on in a couple of different lengths. But I'll start with 15 and I'll tie on another 15-pound leader. If I'm going mono because I want that bait to slow a little bit, fall a little bit slower, then I'll go with about a 12 to 14-pound mono for my leader. But just, you know, 15-pound, 20-pound for your main line is a good start with a Carolina rig. Because I'm going to tell you right now, you are going to retie this thing all day long. So the bigger the line, the better chance you have of it not breaking. If you do, you know, get some abrasions while you're bringing that lure back in and a fish hits it, you got a better chance of getting in the boat without you know, breaking it off. So, and also you don't have that stretch. So fluorocarbon don't have a lot of stretch in it. So if you're making that long cast up there and you're dragging it, fluorocarbon don't, like I say, don't have that stretch, so you can get a really good hook set on. If you go mono on it, you can get some, but you got a better chance at not pinning that hook in that fish's mouth when they're way out there, because it really is, not unless you got a really good rod setup, which I'll go over that in another video, and a long rod. If you bomb it way out there, it's really hard to get a good hook set on. I've lost a lot of fish with the wrong setup, wrong line, until I've gotten this all figured out and had a lot better hookup ratio than what I used to have. But my main baits that I like to throw on this is going to be one, the Missile Baits Baby Destroyer, and this is candy grass. I love this color. Any time of the year, anywhere you go, it's just like a watermelon seed with a little bit of purple flake in the top. As you can see here, it's just a really great color. I don't, everywhere you go, it's just that natural color, and it works really great. And it's got, you know, the tail action here, as you can see. Split it apart a little bit. I mean, it's just got action when you're swimming it, and it's starting to fall. It's got that good action. It's got some good little flappers here. It's just all around is a fish catching machine, and I really like this on there. Now in the wintertime, I'll throw that, but I'll also switch it up with a big old monster worm. I mean, you're looking at, you know, 10-inch worm. I've thrown some stuff up to a 15-inch worm. I don't throw that a lot, but I have, especially at nighttime. During the summer, I'll throw that, but we're talking wintertime right now. So, but a lot of your fish during the wintertime that you're going to catch are going to be some of the biggest fish that you're going to catch all year long. They're fat, they're lazy, they're just sitting there and just getting fatter and fatter. They're not working off all that weight, and all they're going to do is constantly keep eating, trying to keep their metabolism up. You know, with the cold weather, they try not to move that much. So, you know, dragging something like this really slow across the bottom, it's killer. And like I said, I love throwing a big worm during the wintertime for those big bites. You don't get a lot of bites. I mean, and you'll catch smaller fish too with it. So, you know, if you're worried about only just getting those big bites, you will catch smaller fish with it too. I mean, we all know a daggone perch will sit there and try to eat it. I've actually caught fish off of an old monster, so well, perch off of an old monster. So we all know you can catch a lot of fish with it, but during the wintertime, you're looking for those 5 good bites. That's basically what you're looking for. You can Texas rig that. I don't do Texas rigs much during the wintertime, not unless I'm fishing a bluff wall that's, you know, anywhere between starting out at 0 to 50 within 5 feet off the bank, I'll throw something like that on a Texas rig. But most of the time, I'm not dragging that out yet. That's something later on through the day I might pull it out. But it's really hard to beat a Carolina rig this time of year. You can go smaller. I've actually we've thrown the watermelon seed U-tail by Zoom, and you'll get a lot of bites with that through the wintertime. So if you're just out there just trying to catch some fish, it doesn't matter the size. You can start out with the U-tail, and you'll catch some monsters on it. But this right here, if you want to catch a big one, it's hard to beat the old monster. You can go color-wise. I only stick with 2 different colors on the old monster. It's green pumpkin and it's watermelon seed. That's the only 2 colors I throw during the wintertime. Summertime, I'll get into blacks and like those plum colors and stuff like that. But wintertime, that's all I'm sticking to, is all natural colors. My third bait is, and this is when it's a good sunny day. I know they're tight to cover. You got to make precise casts, getting it under docks, getting it right under that overhang on a tree. You're fishing bluff walls like I talked about earlier, throwing a Texas rig. This bait right here comes in handy as well. This is the Ike's Mini Flip. Just putting a jig out there. Got the this one. I got the Chunky D on here, and just it's a killer, man. I always have this sitting right there, ready to go and make that cast. It's a good cleanup bait as well. Say you work down through there with a jerk bait or a crank bait, and you got a couple isolated pieces of cover. This right here, you throw that in there and see if you can kind of score that extra bite that maybe you missed if they wasn't chasing that jig or chasing that crank bait or jerk bait or whatever. So most time with these, I'm sticking with my natural colors, my green pumpkins, browns. This is more of like that. It's like a Bama crawl color. It's got some orange in it. It's got some green pumpkin in it. It's just a all-around good bait. I've caught a lot of fish off this jig right here. You can go with the Chunky D, or you can go with the Missile Baits Mini D Chunks. Either way, they both work really great. I like getting mine a little more compact. I know some guys really love throwing big jigs, and Missile Baits has a whole wide selection of different jigs for what situations you got and all that. And they got some really big jigs you can throw too to try to get that big bite like you would when you're throwing like a big worm here. But I like just having this a little bit smaller profile, getting a little bit more bites with it. You get big bites with it, you get small bites with it. So if you're just out there trying to catch some fish or score a good bag, this right here is the way to go for sure. Most time, this right here, 15 pounds or bigger. I don't go under 15 pound test line, fluorocarbon. It's something about you getting in all that tight cover. You're getting it way back up under them docks. When they hit it, they want to run between every single pole. So you want to have good, strong line to get them out of there. I'm throwing anywhere between a medium heavy to a heavy, depending on the situation on my rod. Most of the time, though, it's just a medium heavy that I'm throwing with this. But like I say, if I'm getting it way back up under there on a dock, or I'm getting it really tight into the trees, way back in there, I'm going to go with that heavy just to get them out of there and get that really good hook set on them. All right, this next bait I'm going to show you is kind of like a bait that I used to keep it in my hand all the time. It was my confidence bait. No matter where I went, I was going to catch fish. But the problem I always struggled with was I might catch 1 or 2 decent fish, but everything else was like 14 inches or whatever. Now, some guys, they've made a straight living off of this bait. I got buddies like Casey Reed's done really well for his career with throwing this bait. But for me, it seems like I got more smaller bites than I ever did bigger bites with it. But it's still my go-to when things are really getting tough and I need to generate a bite and I just can't seem to get it. That's the Shaky head. You can't go wrong with this bait. It catches them all year long, but it does really well during the wintertime when that bite is extremely, extremely tough. I got a couple different baits that I like to throw on my Shaky head. This one right here is the Missile Baits Magic Worm. This is a 6-inch worm. This is the Green Pumpkin Money. I love this color. This is, when I seen it, when they first came out with it, I was like, this is a bait I gotta have, because it's not that straight like green pumpkin color. It's got some translucent color in it. I don't know if you can see here. Sorry, the camera don't want to zoom in on it, focus on it, but there we go. We don't have these in stock on oneobjectivebf.com, but you can. I'll put a link down below where you can get these through Missile. It's a really great bait. It's a good salty bait. Make sure you get you a few packs of them though, because you know, guys, how robo-worm is. If you throw robo-worms for drop shot and all that stuff, they're a great bait. They're really salty, which makes them really good, but they tear all to pieces easily. So And when you start getting on a hook setting spree there, you're going to go through a bunch of these. But these so far, since I've been throwing them, have held up really well. But they are going to rip them. They're going to tear them like they do all soft plastics. But when you got a lot of salt in them to have that good sinking action and action in the water, you got to kind of sacrifice it. So the other bait I like to throw on a shaky head is the Missile Baits Quiver. This is a 6-inch. This is the Watermelon Candy Red. Very similar to like Candy Grass. It's got that good perch imitating color. It's a little bit fatter bait here than what like you would throw with the magic worm here. But the tail's a little different, you know what I mean? So when it goes down in the bottom there, this is catching all that water, and it allows that just to give it a little bit more action. When you're working on the bottom, this tail helps give this bait a lot more action on the bottom. This is a great bait to flip around. I mean, you can throw this on a Carolina rig. It does really well on a Carolina rig too. If you don't want like the crazy action like you would with a ribbon tail, you have this paddle tail on it. It helps give it a little bit more flapping action when it's dragging across the bottom, but it does really good on a shaky head. But on my shaky head setup, I'm going with a medium heavy action spinning rod with anywhere between 8 to 10 pound fluorocarbon. With that's my leader. So I'm throwing braid to fluorocarbon with the FG knot, and haven't had no issues with it. I love that setup. With the braid, it's super sensitive, but you also got the clearness of the fluorocarbon. So when you're trying to do that get that finesse bite going on, they don't really see your line. And I'll like I say, I'll throw in between 8 to 10 pound tests. And with doing a leader like that, you can make adjustments on the fly on the water. If you're like, hey, I just need to go, I keep getting abrasions, or I'm breaking off because they're getting it and going up in there in the trees, you can go to a 10 pound test and have a little bit bigger diameter, a little bit stronger a line, but it's not too big. So like I say, just doing the braid to fluorocarbon leader, just a great way to make quick adjustments on the water. And also, like I say, when you're playing with the 10 pound to 8 pound, if I'm throwing 8 pound, most of the time I'm using an 1/8 ounce head. If I'm throwing 10 pound, I'm going to a little bit bigger head with a 1/4 ounce head. You can throw the 1/8 ounce on a 10 pound test. It's not a problem at all. A lot of people do it every day. But for me, that's just a little adjustments I make where I feel confident that my bait is working at I can get the most out of my bait when I do that. So. But other than that, guys, I hope this video helped you out to at least get you started when you get on the water. Now, I have other baits that I like to throw that you have seen me, like you're probably wondering, well, how come you don't have an Alabama rig in there? That is one of my go-to baits. I'm going to have that tied on. But I've done a how-to in Alabama rigging. Y'all have seen a lot of my videos with me catching them on Alabama rigs. But I wanted to show you there's other baits that I love to throw this time of the year that I don't always have in the videos because I either just ain't doing much on it, they're not really chasing it. And plus the fishing around here has been kind of crazy here lately, so I haven't been able to really get on these other bites, and it's just mainly been the Alabama rig. But I can maybe do a 2.0 video here soon on my other top 5 baits that I like to throw during the wintertime. But these right here are my main go-tos. Anywhere I go in the country, these are going to be tied on. These are going to be ready to go, and they're going to be out on the front deck of my boat or my kayak or whatever. And this is what's going to get thrown this time of the year. And this is what I've caught most of my fish off of this time of the year. The Alabama rig is something that I've just kind of started getting into and starting to perfect that a little bit more to how I like to fish. So, but other than that, guys, hope you enjoyed the video. I'm going to have links in the description below of all these baits that I have here. Some are going to be to oneobjectivebf.com. Some of them are going to be to other companies or where you can order these baits, because I want you to be able to get your hands on them and get out there and catch more fish during the wintertime. So, but I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll talk to you later. Hit that subscribe button. See you guys.